£20 coin.
Never seen them in my life.
So it's from the Royal Mint, so the same place that all legal tender comes from.
Have you got any other means of payment at the minute?
I don't know. Can I ask why you didn't tell me before you started recording?
So when we go to any incident, our tour of duty and our police protocol is to video every incident we go to achieve the best evidence.
But you've got to notify the person at the first available opportunity.
No, we don't.
You do?
Have you got that from somewhere? Have you read that up somewhere? Or?
Yes, your policy. Yeah.
Well, at the minute, we're obviously videoing everything because we've been called to an incident. Immediate response where there's some ongoing issue with payment, whether it's a domestic...
999?
Well, that's what's coming as, yeah.
Well,
just to know what was happening. There was an altercation in the shop, so we've arrived on that instance. Are you going to give me your name?
I'm not, no.
Right, okay. Is there a reason for that?
Because it's a civil matter, and it's not something that the police can get involved in.
To a degree, you're right. It is a civil matter. We can deal with it a different way, but obviously, ultimately, you haven't paid for it.
The officer herself acknowledges that the issue is a civil dispute, yet she still tries to invent authority to demand identification, claiming it's just in case it needs to be resolved later. That's not how lawful policing operates. Without reasonable suspicion of a criminal offense, there is no legal power to compel someone's personal details. She can't turn a private disagreement over payment into an excuse for a police-enforced ID check just because the business owner is upset. Her claim that the individual could be circulated as wanted was nothing more than an empty threat. Wanted notices apply to criminal cases, suspects, outstanding warrants, or failures to appear in court, not disagreements over payment methods. Using that kind of language to pressure someone into complying is a clear abuse of authority and essentially an admission that she had no legitimate grounds to act. If she honestly suspected a crime, she would have needed to assess whether key elements were present, such as intent to deceive, making off without payment, or deliberate avoidance. But in this case, the individual remained on site, attempted to pay, and simply disputed the method of payment, a textbook example of a civil matter, not a criminal one.
But they're not accepting that money.
But that's up to them to accept it. If they decline...
They've obviously run the post office and they've declined that. Ultimately, it's a civil issue, but if you're not willing to give us your details, then how do we know that you're going to resolve the civil issue at a later date? If you're happy to give us your details, then we can look at the civil issue at a later date.
But that's a civil issue, that's nothing for the police to get involved in.
But we don't know your details, do we? So you could technically escape from here and never come back and never deal with that issue, then you'd be circulated as wanted for that, won't you, for making off without payment?
That's not a police issue at the minute.
It is.
It's
it
not.
is a police issue because you've not paid for fuel. So there's still an offence there of that you've not paid for your fuel.
But I have paid. I've gave them...
But you've gave them this coin, yeah, which ultimately they've spoke to the post office and they've decided that it's not a reasonable amount of payment for your fuel. So at the minute we're sort of hands are tied, agree with you on a certain instance of that, but we still need a solution today, whether we take your details and we deal with it at a later date.
The arrival of the second officer only escalates the situation unnecessarily, as she immediately jumps to threatening arrest. That reaction is completely disproportionate. The auditor was still on the premises, not trying to flee, and was clearly engaging in a discussion about the payment. You can't accuse someone of making off without payment when they haven't even attempted to leave, let alone shown intent to avoid paying. Her threat becomes even more baseless considering the auditor had already tried to settle the bill using a $20 Royal Mint coin, which the cashier simply refused to accept. That alone undercuts any claim that he was trying to dodge payment. According to the Theft Act, both elements, leaving the premises and the intention to avoid paying, must be present for it to be a criminal offense. Neither applied in this situation. The officer's decision to treat a civil disagreement as a criminal matter, simply because she wasn't given personal details, reveals a worrying lack of legal understanding.
Basically, he's trying to pay with this. They've run the post office and said that it doesn't really exist, you can't pay with that. He obviously won't give us our details. I've explained to him to a degree it's a civil matter, however, if he does make off and he doesn't give us our details, we're struggling for any sort of civil issue at a later date. Any details and making off without payment, so I've explained if he does give us his details and we know where he is and we can contact him at a later date, hopefully this issue can get resolved. Now, he's obviously not really wanting to do that at the minute.
Because it's a civil issue and it's nothing for the police to get involved in.
But you're still going to make off, aren't you? Technically without payment, but if we can get your details...
But I have paid.
But you haven't...
And it is their policy to accept the £20 coin.
Has he paid?
Policy? No, he hasn't.
Right, if you haven't paid, and if you walk out the door now...
They've still got the money though.
Just let me finish. If you walk out that door now, you are liable for an arrest because we don't have your details.
But you don't need them
But I do
because it's a civil issue.
But it's not, because a make off without payment is then a police matter.
The entire situation was built on a flawed assumption. The officers kept issuing warnings about what would happen if the auditor left, as if he were about to flee without paying. But that moment never arrived. He remained inside the store, fully engaged in conversation, and had already attempted to pay using a Royal Mint $20 coin. Their reaction wasn't based on what he did, but on a hypothetical scenario they had imagined. That's not policing based on facts. That's policing based on fiction. The claim that they couldn't verify his identity without demanding ID is equally unconvincing. His vehicle, with a visible number plate, was parked right outside, a perfectly legal and immediate method to identify him, if they had truly needed to. But rather than use the tools already available to them, the officers ignored that route and continued pressing for personal details they had no legal authority to demand. What should have been a straightforward civil disagreement was inflated into a threat of arrest, not to resolve the situation, but to exert control. In doing so, they escalated the issue instead of addressing it.
Out that
No,
door
it's
now,
not.
it is. If you walk out that door now, you'll be getting arrested for make off without payment.
But there is an agreement with BP that
Is there any
the
other
coin can be
way? Is
used.
there any other way that you can pay? Because we're going to sit here for hours arguing. I've been quite respectful to you. I appreciate you have to a degree, and I appreciate that from yourself. You haven't been argumentative with me, and I appreciate that you've been a normal human being.
No,
However, we need
I don't
a
intend to.
solution.
No.
No, I know you
If
appreciate
you
that.
can pay for the fuel now by other means, then that's fair enough. It'll be the end of the matter.
Or if you can give us your details, we can deal with it at a slower time. We can offer you that. But if you're not willing to do either any, then we're struggling with what we have left to do.
Because we can't let you walk out that door without paying. But
We don't know where you live. You might not even be from around here. I'm not saying you are, but you know what I mean. We have people where they'll make off and then they won't give us our details, and then we're going to struggle. I'm still going to have that £20 of fuel, unfortunately, with this BP garage outstanding.
Which car is it?
But I have paid for the fuel.
But you haven't paid for it. Which one?
Right, we're going round in circles, aren't we?
We are, unfortunately, yeah. We've agreed, we've reasoned with you now. We've tried to say that if you give us your details, just tell you where they live, we'll deal with it slow time. However, you then leave. You don't have your details, you don't know where you live, you could live in London for all we know, and then there's still this making off without payment because they will not accept this as payment.
But I don't have to identify for a civil issue.
It technically isn't a civil issue though, is it, when you leave and you don't pay? You haven't paid for your fuel. We've got the payment here, which isn't acceptable, so really you haven't paid at the minute.
The auditor had already gone above and beyond by highlighting that BP themselves acknowledged the $20 Royal Mint coin as valid. That should have resolved the issue then and there. Instead, the officer twisted the situation, demanding that he personally contact the company, threatening that failure to do so would turn it into a police matter. That's completely unreasonable. There's no legal obligation for a citizen to carry out an officer's investigation, and declining to do so doesn't suddenly turn a civil dispute into a criminal offense. The job of the police is to evaluate the situation based on facts and apply the law, not to shift the burden onto the individual to prove their innocence or validate their actions. Her follow-up comment, "We don't know that coin," only further undermined her credibility. The 20 Royal Mint coin is legal tender. If she and her colleagues aren't familiar with it, that reflects a lack of training or awareness on their part, not any wrongdoing by the auditor.
I've handed the coin over, so I haven't got that in my possession, and I've contacted BP head office before coming here.
Right, and was that today then, or?
No,
So when was that then? So you've contacted BP head office before you've come in?
correct.
Right, so did you contact them today, or was it yesterday, or last week, or?
It's not up to me to say that.
How's it money?
Do you understand what the £20 coin is?
No, that's why I'm confused.
Well, why are you threatening me for arrest then, if you don't know?
Because it's not money.
It is.
Right. Well, agree to disagree. At the end
You
of the
don't know that. It is. It's
Right.
legal tender, the same as a £20 note and a £10 note.
Right, and who did you speak to from the BP garage, the manager?
It's a Royal Mint who issued that £20 coin.
Right.
So it's the same money as any other money.
If you get someone on the phone to me who you've spoken to earlier, then we could kind of end the matter here, can't we?
Well, if it's a civil issue, I don't need
but
to
at the minute
assist
we
you.
don't, but at the minute we don't know it's a civil matter.
I don't need to assist you in a civil issue.
But you do, because it then turns into a police matter because we don't know that.
This is the moment where the situation shifts from incompetence to outright abuse of power. The officers arrest the auditor for making off without payment, while he's literally standing inside the store, clearly stating, "I haven't made off." That single sentence should have brought the matter to an immediate close. The law is clear. For the offense to apply, there must be an act of leaving without paying, coupled with intent to permanently avoid payment. Neither element was present. The auditor had not left, wasn't attempting to leave, and was actively explaining his position. On top of that, he had already offered a legitimate form of payment, the $20 Royal Mint coin, which the cashier chose not to accept. At that point, the disagreement remained entirely civil. Yet the officers still proceeded with the arrest, fully aware that the legal threshold for the offense hadn't been met. From a legal standpoint, their actions were indefensible. Now, Auditor IP has provided an update on how his claim is progressing. The case eventually made it to court, and the auditor walked away with a significant $319.99 payout, plus legal costs. That's far from pocket change. It's a serious financial outcome for something that never should have escalated in the first place. The payout highlights just how shaky the police's actions were once examined under legal scrutiny. They clearly knew they couldn't defend what happened, so settling was their only option. What's even more damning, according to the auditor, is that the chief constable, leader of the force, never issued an apology. They paid out thousands in taxpayer money, essentially admitting wrongdoing through their wallet, yet couldn't bring themselves to offer a basic acknowledgement of fault. That silence says a lot. It reflects a culture where preserving image matters more than owning mistakes, and where public trust feels like an afterthought. This case perfectly illustrates how a simple civil disagreement can spiral into full-blown misconduct. When officers don't understand the very laws they're meant to uphold, a disagreement over a coin, something that should have never required police involvement, ended in a wrongful arrest driven by ego and a misuse of authority. That's not policing. That's bullying in uniform. Even worse, the officers didn't just misapply the law, they invented reasons to justify their actions. Repeatedly asking, "What if you walk out without paying?" Despite the auditor clearly stating he wasn't leaving, shows they were chasing a fictional scenario. They weren't responding to reality, they were trying to reshape it to fit an arrest. This isn't just a one-off. It points to a deeper issue, a reliance on intimidation instead of informed, measured policing. Instead of using knowledge and professionalism to de-escalate, they reach straight for threats, detainment, and arrest. And when fear becomes a substitute for facts, the damage goes far beyond one person. It erodes public confidence in the entire system, because if this can happen over a single coin, it can happen over anything. And then there's the aftermath. Nearly $4,000 paid from public funds, yet not a single word of apology. That silence isn't just arrogance, it's a quiet admission. An admission that they'd rather throw money at the problem than face the real issue, a serious failure in conduct and accountability. The priority was clearly protecting the force's image, not correcting its behavior.
If
You're
it's a civil
running the risk of
agreement,
being arrested because you haven't given us the details, and you're going to walk out that door and it's technically a failure to pay.
but then it'll be a
Make off
civil.
without payment.
But then I'll sue you.
Well, that's
So-
fine. If you want to sue us, that's fine.
Unlawful
But
arrest.
like I said, we've been honest with you in terms of which way we can go. The staff here have been very honest, okay? And all I'm saying
But he
is, if you
hasn't.
get the person on the phone who you spoke to earlier with the agreement, then that could be the end of the matter. But
You
as
know-
far as I do, then technically, if you walk out the door, it's going to be make off without payment.
He's already accepted to take it.
You haven't accepted to take it. No, haven't accepted to take it. You walk out that door, becomes a criminal matter, and you get arrested for make off without payment.
Oh, you give us your details.
You're refusing to give us your details, and we don't know that that vehicle is yours because you're not.
But I've told you
Is it urgent?
that he said he would take the coin
But he isn't now, is
if
he?
I take my mask off.
Right, well I wasn't here for that, so we have no witnesses, unfortunately, other than you and him. Right now I can't view that.
Body camera.
But right now I can't view that. At the end of the day, you've come in, you've paid for you've got your fuel, you've come in. This isn't a payable matter. Once you leave, we've offered you to give us your details and deal with it that way. For all I know, that vehicle could be registered to somebody else and lived in London. And how are we ever going to trace you?
But I don't
Once
need to
leave
assist
this
you.
situation, it is making off without payment. I can't be any more reasonable with you and give you some sort of options that we can go.
But I don't
with.
need to assist you.
Are you offering to give
Because
the
you're
staff,
wrong.
not myself, not my colleague, the staff your name and contact number?
No.
Right, so we have one option, but two will lock you up then.
Well, I've got a civil agreement in the background.
You
So-
can prove that at court.
I've got
Prove that at court.
That's
then.
fine. You can prove that at court.
Right, well, this moment in time, you're currently under arrest for making off without payment. You don't
I
have to
haven't-
say anything.
but I haven't made off.
We don't mention one question to the later line. Or anything you do is a negative evidence.
But I haven't made off though.
For your arrest is recorded in fact investigation. Okay?
But I haven't made off.
That you're in caution stuff.
Mind you, the fact that you failed to provide details.
But I haven't made off.
Failed to provide details, yeah.
But I haven't made off.
Right, are we going to go calmly? Are we going to go quietly?
We would go calmly all the time.
Okay, well, do you want to walk with us then?
Of course.
Thank you. Come with me, sir, please. Have you got anything in your pockets that's going to harm on me or you?
Just take
them out. It's just a question we ask
Thank you very much.
everybody.
Can we just take your camera off as well, please?